Okay, this is a very old book, okay? Reuben Fine, Lessons from My Games, A Passion for Chess. This is practically a book on 50 games by Reuben Fine, that was one of the top players in the 1940s up to 1950, and he was also one of the top players in the world, not only US, okay? Why did I get this book? Because this was recommended from a grandmaster as chess improvement. The problem is, there are a couple of problems. One is very funny. One is that it's all in algebraic, in descriptive, not in algebraic. So for me, the descriptive, I'm sorry, I really don't like it, don't like it. So what did I do? I practically found the same games on this book that is all in algebraic. This book has all the games played by Fine, and so I found the same games that I find here with the commentary by Fine, okay? In algebraic, so it's easy for me to put it over the board. The other funny thing is they say that their paper is opaque and minimal, that you can see through, but in reality, I don't know if you can see it, I can see here that what there is written in the other page, so which is obviously in this page, you know. So it's really funny that everybody continues to lie. When they tell you that everything is natural, it's because it's not natural. If they tell you that there is really little transparency, it's because you can see through. And so this is a kind of funny. However, honestly, I think I paid this book like $1, $2. It's from 1958. It's a good investment in any case. I like to have it. I like to read what Mr. Fine had to say at the time. Without further ado, I would like to show you a game by Capablanca, a simultaneous game played against multiple opponents in which Fine won the game. And I hope you will enjoy it. This is the game that is number 1 in this book. So this is game number 1, entitled A Lucky Beginning. And here Fine recounts the following. It is the dream of every young chess hopeful to begin his career with a victory against a world champion. As luck would have it, I was able to do that in a simultaneous exhibition against Capablanca in the winter of 1930-31. At that time I was just past 16 and had been familiar with the New York Chess Club for about 2 years. My first glimpse of a world champion came in 1928, when Alekhine gave a blindfold exhibition at the Manhattan Chess Club. But the crowds were so thick that the secretary asked me to leave and make way for the grown-ups. So from this we know that in that time they didn't like the teenager, they only liked the grown-ups. The Marshall Chess Club, in contrast to its older rival the Manhattan, had provision for juniors, and it was there that I first met up with formidable opposition in the spring of 1929. The weekly rapid transit tournaments allowed everybody to participate at the proper handicap, and I was judged to be of knight odds strength. So this is kind of very interesting, because you see, in that time the rating didn't exist, so they had to discover how strong a player was, and they did it with a handicap. So practically they were giving a knight advantage to Fine and he would lose. Occasionally I would win a prize at these odds, and as I improved gradually it was lowered to pawn and 2 moves. So they gave him a pawn and 2 moves, then pawn and move, draw odds, and finally even. So very, very interesting. The system which allowed me to compete against the best from the very beginning, helped to perfect my skill at 10-second chess. In the time they played, this rapid transit was a special kind of time control that was like you had to make a move in 10 seconds, otherwise you would lose. And so I don't know really how it works, but so let's see. Tournaments were held quite frequently in the clubs those days, but only rare successes fell to me until the summer of 1931, when I finished second in the New York State Championship, ahead of Dake, a member of the victorious United States team at Prague, and many other top-notch American masters. The exhibition in which I defeated Capablanca was one on 50 boards, with 4 opponents at each board. So Capablanca was playing 200 people. That's funny. At the time, Capablanca was relatively inactive in chess, since Alekhine was avoiding a return match with him with remarkable ingenuity. The exhibition and a small tournament a few months later helped to keep him in trim. Okay, and now I turn to this big book, because this is in algebraic. And here it says, Fine says, by the way of explanation, I should state that the others, because we say there were 4 people at each board, deserted me after we maneuvered ourselves into a lost position. The others were McMurray, Schwartz and Stephens. Okay, so d4, Capablanca is white, okay? Knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, d5, bishop g5, knight d7, e3, bishop e7, and knight f3. At the time, my ignorance of the openings was abysmal. I didn't know that this variation had been explored to the depths in the Alekhine Capablanca match of 1927. Why he didn't know? Because in that time it was difficult to have books, it was difficult to have bulletins of tournament matches, and so obviously maybe he didn't have that access of literature that nowadays I have, thanks to ChessBase, with a couple of clicks on the computer, right? So what did Black do? c5, that is not good, a blunder. Blunder made because I knew no better. C takes d5, c takes d4, another blunder. Thanks God they always come together. Queen takes d4, e takes d5, bishop b5, preparing to win the queen's pawn. Castle, bishop takes d7, bishop takes d7, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and now we finally have queen takes f d5. Kappa now has a won game, but black's 2 bishops and superiority in development make trouble. Queen c8. It says if instead bishop takes c6, no, it's not takes c6, it's bishop c6, that's it. I don't know why they put bishop takes c6, maybe they just copied the game from the book without actually covering possible mistakes. Let's see if it's true. No, in the thing is correct. If bishop b3, bishop 3. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we know that these are the same annotation of the book. Perfect. So it says if bishop c6, queen takes d8, rook f takes d8, Rook c1 is too strong for white. Okay, so that's not the move to play. Thank you for showing us that that wasn't the move to play, not that we care. So queen c8, knight d4. White must lose time. He says that he cannot play rook c1 at once. Let's move on. Rook d8, castle, bishop c6, finally, queen c5, and bishop e8. Here it says the decision to try for compensation in the endgame is the correct one. It seems that bishop takes d4 wasn't good. Let's see what happened. Queen takes c8, rook a take c8, and now rook f d1, g6, probably to avoid a possible rank mate. At this point I had the audacity to offer Kappa a draw, which was curtly refused. Funny, because after Fine will become one of the top players, so he will play with Capablanca in real tournaments, so that's interesting. Knight d e2. Here, however, Kappa begins to go wrong, no doubt lulled into security by his opponent's previous weak play. The king should go to the center as soon as possible. So the maneuver is this because this is an endgame. Okay? That's the reason. King f8, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, rook d1, rook takes d1. Wow. Capablanca went into an endgame against a bishop pair. That's really strange. And king e7. Now the bishop pair can become kind of strong, and knight d c3. Obviously to prevent bishop b5. So let's see, bishop g7, probably wants to move this. Knight d4, a loss of time, he says. King d6, king f1, king c5, knight d e2. Okay. I think it's interesting because maybe you don't know, but Fine was very famous because he wrote a manual, an endgame manual, 600 pages, in a few weeks, couple of weeks, let's say. So it's really crazy thing, right? That manual obviously has a lot of mistakes, but in that time nobody knew, and so it was like a Bible, because everybody was reading that and referring to that in order to know an endgame. Here we see that Fine challenged Capablanca in what Capablanca is known for, the endgame. So that's why for me this is very interesting. King e1, after king f1, king c6, knight d2, king c4, king e1, king d3, king d1, and now bishop takes c3. Boom! The key move, which keeps black king prancing around in white's vitals. Knight takes c3, bishop c6 because he doesn't want. Knight e2. Obviously this is played because this is under attack, right? But you cannot take it because knight f4 forks this and take the bishop back. Okay? Bishop f4. This was made obviously to make weaker this side. b3, bishop c6, h4. White is definitely in trouble. f6, knight f4 check, king c3, king c1, obviously you don't want him to go here, g5, h takes g, f takes g, knight e6, bishop takes g2, knight takes g5, and h5. It is in endgames like these which yield the two exact calculation that the single player has a hard time. Black has correctly counted out the position and wins in all variations. Wow. So this is kind of very interesting. He was really powerful for calculation already now. King d1, h4, king e2, h3, f3, h2, knight e4, beautiful move, king b4, and here there is a trap. If he played king b2 there was a trap, so be careful, try to discover why. There is a note by Fine about this move, so that's really interesting. Knight f2, h1, queen, knight takes h1, bishop takes h1, king f2, king c3, e4, king d4, a3, a5, a4, b6. I think by now Capablanca is really thinking, oh, why I didn't accept the draw. That's funny. King g3, king e3, e5, bishop takes e4, f3, sorry, f3, e6, and bishop c6. And here I don't know why they continue to play, because it's clear that white cannot win, okay? e7, king d3, king f4, king c3, king d5, king takes b3, king d6, bishop e8, king c7, and it takes f4, king take b6, and king b4, and Capablanca gave up because there is no way you can stop this, and obviously black will sacrifice this pawn on this, so he wins the game. But it's kind of interesting that he did a good calculation already, like 20 moves before, nearly 18 moves before, so it was really a good feat of calculation. So I'm really happy that thanks to this book I'm practically enjoying this book that has games that one can learn and improve from. In this case we clearly need to understand the endgame and be able to calculate very far.